For Mexico's very first horror movie, the filmmakers tapped into the country's rich history and folklore with 1933's La Llorona. La Llorona, often translated into English as the Weeping Woman, is one of Latin America's most famous legends. The tragic haunting figure is particularly prevalent in Mexican culture. As with most folklore, many variations of the story exist. Generally, the tale concerns a scorned wife. The woman witnesses her husband with another woman and, in the heat of the moment, murders their children. Instantly beset with crippling grief and regret, she then takes her own life, before becoming a phantom spirit whose terrifying and sad wailing can be heard throughout the nocturnal hours. This famous legend is sometimes connected with La Malinche, a real-life historical figure and native of Mexico that acted as an important go-between during the time of Cortez and the Spanish conquistadors. To many, she is seen as a symbol of treachery. These two stories were ripe for adaptation, and both were fittingly included into what would be Mexico's very first horror movie. La Llorona begins simply, reflecting the cautionary tale that the wailing woman often represents, the warning to kids about staying out too late. A man wanders alone at midnight. Suddenly, he hears the frightful wails and collapses to the ground dead. The local doctor concludes it was a run-of-the-mill cardiac arrest, though his assistants believe spooky work is afoot. This debate introduces a key theme of the film, the battle between reality and superstition. With the tone and themes established, we move on to the main plot of the film. A family are celebrating their young boy's 4th birthday by throwing him a spectacular party. Though many of the children are more engrossed with the circling camera than their dinner and playtime. Well, except for this kid, who's more engrossed with his nasal cavity. The party is a success for both children and adults alike, and we are given a bit of time to enjoy the company of this adorable family unit. When the kid is taken to bed, however, Granddad takes Dad aside to lay down some pretty heavy claims. He speaks of family curses, spiritual vengeance due to the crimes of their Spanish ancestors, how his older brother and firstborn son were both terribly murdered on their 4th birthdays. Way to put a dampener on the special day, Papa. Granddad provides evidence by reciting the legend of La Llorona. With the use of primitive but effective transitions, we are cast into a visual retelling of the urban myth. It more or less follows the typical tale. Jealousy, marital betrayal, grief, murder, and ghosts. The father is skeptical. Any tragedy that had befallen their family was mere coincidence. But, in true horror style, the night holds many terrors and the young child is put in mortal danger. With the aid of another flashback scene, we are transported back to the era of the Spanish conquest of the Aztecs and see firsthand the connection to La Malinche. The film is worth a watch. The family is endearing enough to root for, and the sprinkling of supernatural scenes are handled with a quaint charm which, in the context of the wider myth, hold a familiar sense of sadness and fear. A large chunk of the soundtrack during scenes of a spooky nature consists of the same 4-note tune, accompanied by unnerving percussion. By the end of the film, the 4 notes did start to put me on edge. That said, the visual retelling of the classic myth does admittedly run on a little longer than it needs to. Sometimes it feels a little like a doomed telenovela, but there is enough action, drama, and fancy costumes to maintain interest. In conclusion, La Llorona is a fine film that wonderfully captures both its country's interesting history and unsettling folklore, opening the doors for many more on-screen adaptations of The Weeping Woman over the coming decades.